Do you spend a ton of time training your SDRs only to find that they make the same mistake over and over again, take months to ramp, and have trouble making quota? Yoda AI by RingDNA delivers AI-powered conversation guidance so that every rep can sell like your top performer. In real time, deliver talking points that help reps overcome sales objections, stay on message, and beat the competition. You'll never have to endlessly repeat sales advice to reps again. It's easy to set up, easy to customize, and comes with out-of-the-box coaching best practices. Turn your team into a revenue-driving machine today with Yoda AI by RingDNA. To learn more, visit ringdna.com/Yoda. That's ringdna.com/YODA.
We call them red zones, dead zones, and maintenance zones. You've got to have some of those activities where you're actually in it for the short term, but you got to go after the long-term ones. And I used to have Akron-Canton as a territory, and I was constantly working at Goodrich, Goodyear, Firestone, and it took a year or so to penetrate, but I still remember being in the senior VP of purchasing's office at Goodrich, whose office was probably bigger than my house, and just it took a while to work those. You're not going to get a hold of the CMO at General Motors with a week's worth of trying.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. Well, that was Skip Miller. And today with Skip, we're going to talk about his latest book titled Outbounding. Win new customers with outbound sales and end your dependence on inbound leads. Now, this is an in-depth conversation about prospecting and selling in today's digital age. Skip and I dive into the motivations for change that are driving the decisions of corporate decision makers and why, when companies decide they need to change, they need help from sellers to get to where they need to go. Skip also shares his buy-sell pyramid, his integrated look at modern buying and selling processes, and how it differs from conventional sales process and how it aligns with the buyer's buying process. We also dig into Skip's theory of the two decisions in every sale, the above-the-line decision and the below-the-line decision. And you'll want to stick around for our discussion of what Skip calls the best sales call in the world. And I have to admit, I agree with his definition. So a lot of great practical takeaways today. Before we get to Skip, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also give us your feedback about how we're doing in the form of a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Skip, welcome back to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Andy, always.
Always a pleasure to talk with you. So, really tough question first. Is Skip your given name?
I come from a big family, five brothers and sisters, and when I was born, my mom got a card saying the skipper of the crew. My real name is William, and my dad was William, my uncle was William, my brother's Ronald William. So I think my mom was in the nickname world at that time. So that's how I got Skip.
I like it. I mean, it's a great name. So I was going to kid you about your LinkedIn profile because lots of people put sales trainer and so on there, but you're expert sales trainer. I'm thinking
I didn't write that. Somebody else wrote it for me.
As opposed to just sales trainer. That's a good distinction.
I've never read my profile, so maybe I should look at that.
Yeah, you might want to. You never know what people are putting out there for you. Well, tell us a little bit about your sales background. So what was your first sales job?
First real sales job was selling sporting goods to junior high schools. I had a job in college, and it was a small sporting goods store, and
like uniform sales, you mean?
Exactly. So I would go to the high schools, and they'd say, "No, we're already with the big firms and stuff." So the junior highs buy stuff. So I would go to these junior highs and sell them, baseball equipment and cheerleading uniforms and stuff. And nobody really worked at the junior highs. So I had a lot of fun doing that as I went through school.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
At Cleveland State University. I mean, I remember them beating Indiana in the tournament like years and years ago, like some big upset.
They did, and they lost to Navy with David Robinson in the Sweet 16. Yes, they did.
Yeah, but then there was something like the coach got in trouble or something, right?
They were trying to recruit, I think, Manute Bol out of Cuba or something or somewhere, and they got busted. And yep. Typical Cleveland story. Yeah, typical Cleveland story.
I just remember reading not that long ago, like the current Cleveland State University coach has gotten bounced for some infraction too, right?
I'm not familiar with that. I'm focused on the Browns and the Indians. That's where I keep and the Buckeyes. That's where I try to keep my focus.
The Browns, yeah, that's right. Are they still in there or did they lose?
They just lost to Kansas City, but they definitely could have won. So they played them very competitively. So we're happy. 2 years ago, we were 0-16, so we're happy.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the dog pound's not there to see it.
You're exactly right. Nobody's seen sports, which is kind of killing everybody.
Yeah. It's the wise thing to do, though. I mean, this is my opinion. It's still the wise thing to do. I mean, have not been following football at all this year, but I'm a big soccer fan, watching soccer. But it's like, yeah, some college had like 20,000 people in the stands. I'm like, oh my god, we can stop for just 1 year,
It's to the point, yeah.
So, and then I saw you worked for Gartner for a while before you started your business.
So out of school, I worked for McDonnell Douglas selling CAD/CAM, and then did that for 10 years, and then went to a small company that sold computer trade shows. Became VP Sales, president of that company.
Now, like which shows?
They were small 6-foot tabletop. We were called the Invitational Computer Conferences. So you'd come to us and buy 10 cities for $3,000 a city, and you'd have your local salespeople meet local prospects. We'd invite 5,000 people, and 500 would show, and local salespeople making local prospects for a day, it was a quite a profitable business. And
it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, to the point. And then we were part of DataQuest, and then they made me VP of Sales at DataQuest, and then we got bought by Gartner, and then I didn't want to move back to the East Coast. Gartner said, come on back. I'm like, I kind of like California. So I started my own thing. And that was 20 some odd years ago.
So did you come to California from McDonnell Douglas?
Yeah. I got transferred out from Cleveland to California to do some bigger job. Yeah. Cleveland's a great place to be from. It really is. We had a good time.
Yeah. Great food city.
So the whole sales, stuff, I've been a salesperson, a very successful one, a very unsuccessful one, a sales manager, really good, a very manager, very terrible. So, I've had my highs and lows and skinned my knees. So in the consulting business, right, the training business, it's just so much fun to take these small startups, these $10 million companies. We started with Tableau when there was 20 people in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And we started with Zoom when there was 3 people in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of fun to watch these people just grow up and just kind of rinse, repeat. It's kind of fun.
Well, so taking that as sort of an inspiration for question is let's say we see the light at the end of the tunnel relative to the pandemic. Is, in your mind, what's the single biggest challenge for, let's say, individual contributors over the next year or two?
So I hate writing books, right? And they're just a pain. So, but when I see a problem, I call my publisher up and they're like, let's do this. Mm-hmm. So the latest book, Outbounding,
which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, but about a year and a half ago, I was talking to some salespeople and I said, well, how's it going? Well, I got about 80% of my number good. Well, what about the other 20? Yeah, I'm going to have to prospect outbound. How's it going? How's that working for you? Well, I sent an email out to a couple of people last week. I still haven't heard back. So right now in 2021, Andy, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing. Everybody I'm talking to is saying their pipeline looks okay. Things are doing okay. They're taking their quota increases, but they're still looking at the 80% and the 20% out. People have got to stop relying just on inbound stuff and be more intentional about going after, more bigger whale type accounts. They just can't wait for them to fall in their lap like they've done the last couple of years. I think that's a big risk for companies.
But at the same time, though, well, certainly in the SaaS business, I mean, those are, the whole SDR role by and large is about outbound.
Yeah.
And ABM is about, being more intentional about big accounts. I mean, where's the disconnect in your mind?
New logos. You're seeing a lot of growth within current companies, which is great. But you want an SDR going after a big potential account. They're not speaking the right language.
Right.
And the AEs, let me think about this. Continue going after my current accounts or going to spend time to get new ones? I'll try to milk the ones I've got for more. I mean, which is a great mental exercise. But you need some of the best companies we see are taking big accounts away from their hunters, keeping them very happy from compensation, but letting them keep hunting, not turning them into, internal farmers or internal hunters. So
Yeah, well, customer success gets the.
exactly to the point. So what
But do you think that's in your mind? Is that the way they should be doing it?
I think that you got to go earlier in the food chain. You can't wait for a big logo or a big new potential to come to you saying, we're looking at multiple vendors. I mean, they're 30, 40% through the sales process. You've got to go out to these executives, CMOs, CISOs. We're doing work with a company that deals with chief audit executives. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
So,
An accounting firm, it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's a chief. So, but you got to go earlier and say, hey, as you're looking at 2021, what are some of the biggest changes you're looking at? I mean, everybody's got change, and help them walk them through their changes. I'm not a big challenger person, but you got to go after these big executives, and they want to talk to you because they know if they have to make a change, there's risk. You got to go upstream a bit to these executives if you want these new logos. You can't wait for them to knock on your doors, in my opinion.
Yeah. What I think, right, and I'll put a little bit of a spin on that because I think this is where you're going, is we've become so transactional, even in the big ones.
Yep.
That this whole idea that you and I came of age with, which is, yeah, I've got these accounts. I'm going to go talk to them. They're not going to be a prospect for 2 years, but I'm going to be in front of the people that are going to be making that decision or who will be the key stakeholders starting now, because that's part of my business. I'm developing my business. And so part of developing my pipeline is, yeah, I've got some that are short term, near term, long term.
So it's exactly right. We call them, red zones, dead zones, and maintenance zones. You got to have some of those activities where you're actually, in it for the short term, but you got to go after the long-term ones. And, I used to have Akron Canton as a territory, and I was constantly working at Goodrich, Goodyear, Firestone. Yep. And it took a year or so to penetrate, but I still remember being in the senior VP of purchasing's office at Goodrich, whose office was probably bigger than my house. And it took a while to work those. You're not going to get a hold of the CMO at General Motors, with a week's worth of trying. So I see, again, long-term, mid-term, trying to get AEs to outbound to refresh their territories and get new logos in as a problem because there's only so much you can milk out of your current territories.
Yeah, I think it's a great perspective. And again, as I mentioned before, I think it's a perspective that's largely been lost, or especially given sort of the SaaS model is not long enough term perspective from if you're an AE and looking at what your patch is, whether it's vertical market oriented, geographic, whatever, is being strategic about how you're building that business.
I think to your point, Andy, that instead of now asking how much are you going to do in your territory this year, also the question being asked is, how are you going to do it? I mean, what are you doing to get, not just give me the numbers. You got a $2 million territory. Are you going to do the 2 million? Yes. Okay, good. But what specifically are you doing? Are you being more strategic? Are you just going to go get a whole bunch of tactical $20,000 deals? Or are you going to go after a good small, medium, large? What are you doing a little bit more proactively here? I think that is coming more and more to the forefront.
And compensation plans have to reflect that.
Why is that?
The mix is important. And I always put the mix into the plans.
Why is that, right? Consistently, we see compensation programs being a trailer. They have these great ideas, they reorganize, and then they think about compensation is a leading indicator. It should be, guys, let's put the compensation in front of the territory changes. So people know right off day one, if you do this, we're going to get paid, rather than, or you think we probably should change the comp plan. Oh yeah, it's always an afterthought. But you're right, it should be a leading indicator.
Yeah, for sure, especially in that type of environment. I mean, I remember my first sales job. I used to hate it, but we had, in order to make President's Club, we had to hit my numbers in 5 different groups of products.
God, I remember that. Yeah, you did.
That was not fun, especially because what we called Group 1 products were inexpensive. They weren't systems. They were, and it was like we were selling systems for, in today's dollars, would be $500,000, and these things in today's dollars would be $1,000. And it's like, really? I got to sell $5,000 worth of this crap in order to make President's Club?
Can't I just rob? Can I take some of my group 2 and put it over in group 1? Yeah.
Well, no, we just end up giving away the group 1 at the end of the year. But it found its way into a lot of deals.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody. You won't even get charged for it, but you got to get this box.
Yeah, that's right. But the compensation plan was set up, and of course you wanted to make sure that you had to plan your year in order to make sure that you hit all 5 groups. So here's a question for you, and before we start talking about your book, is in a sort of we're talking about some of these issues. Is you've read this a lot, you've seen a lot. People talk about this whole idea of modern sales and so on, and the more I talk to people and so on, it's like the problem is that sales hasn't changed enough.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way? It's like, God, we're just sort of fighting the same problems year after year after year. And part of it's because we're not doing anything fundamentally different. Technology notwithstanding, most technology is being used to automate existing processes. Seems like something needs to change, and we're not seeing enough of that.
Well, the big change this year, obviously, is no sales calls in person or trade shows and stuff, and we've had to really force to adapt our sales processes to Zoom or Hangouts or whatever. And we're not seeing people change sales processes. I mean,
no, give me an example.
We've done a couple of surveys, and sales cycles are getting shorter. Access to C-suite, we call the above the line buyer, access to the C-suite is getting easier because a C-level person will pop in on a 10-minute Zoom call. They won't agree to a big meeting presentation for an hour in the boardroom. So access to C-suite is changing, but sales processes haven't. And I'll give you an example. We were on a chorus call about 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, you can't use that name on this podcast. But anyway,
sorry. Okay, we were on a chorus gong ring type of program. There you go. And so it's the salesperson and the manager of IT services or whatever else, and the CEO. They're on this call. 10 minutes into it, Andy, the CEO goes, "This is great. This is exactly what we need. This is good." The salesperson, without missing a beat, goes, "Great. We'll set up the demonstration for next week." You're like, the CEO just said, "This is perfect." CEOs typically just want to be validated. They don't want to be educated. They don't change their sales process to adapt to situations. I'll go into a company and I'll say, "What's your typical sales process?" "We do this, 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 this." Do you map that out? Do you measure stages? Well, kind of. Do you measure how long you're in a stage? No, we don't do that. I mean, this stuff's been around for 10, 15 years. So you're right. A lot of stuff hasn't changed. Yeah. This stuff hasn't changed. And the good companies master it and do it well. Other companies just are, victims of it. And that's got to change. You've got to be more intentional in the sales management process. Again, we'll talk to 100 sales managers, and I'll say in a 5-stage sales cycle, where do you get involved? Oh, stage 4 or 5, get the deal across the finish line. Where should you get involved? Well, of course, stage 2. And Andy, here's my interpretation of a sales manager coaching at stage 2. How's it going? Good. Need anything? No. Call me if you need me. Okay. No, and that's so true.
Well, it is, yes.
So we got to get better at the changes. You're targeting a really great area about things don't change, but we have to if we want to take advantage of the situation we got now. Access to power is quicker, and because of that, we're seeing great companies cut sales cycles in half because their access to power is so quick. Mm-hmm. But I'll go into companies. What's your average sale? $10,000 a month. Great. How long does that take? About 3-6 months. Jeez, guys, you can't take 3 to 6 months to sell $10,000 a month. That's an out of business strategy. You got to fix that. So things have got to change.
Right. And I think one of the big things is, and this has been something that I've been preaching for a really long time, is that, as sellers, just take your CEO example. I mean, sellers seem like they have to they don't understand the process in relationship to the buyer. Let's do that. You talk about at what point should a sales manager be engaged, right? Step 4, step 2. And buyers and so I think it's been amplified, but I don't have any data, but this is my feeling based on what's happened last year, is buyers in general, what they want to do is they want to quickly gather information and make sense of information to make a good decision with the least investment of time and resources possible.
Yep.
And there's been an entire body of research about this whole idea of people making the good enough decision. And so they do, in most cases. Buyers make the good enough decision. Once they've met or found a solution that satisfies their requirements and they think is sufficient in order to hit their desired business outcomes, they're done. They'll make a decision. And so if you're the first buyer that can do that the first seller, can help the buyer reach that point, to your point about the CEO saying, I like it, and then they'll go, let's talk next week or 2 weeks after that. If you're the first one to do that, we had this whole process we used as one company. We called it taking prospects off the street. That's exactly what we did. We focused so much on the front end to front load the value you provide to help the buyer say, oh yeah, this is good enough. I don't have more time to go talk to 6 more vendors. This is good. Let's do it.
Yeah. So take the world through a lens here. You've got above the line buyers, the fiscal buyer, and the below the line buyer, the person who's in charge of using it, running it, take ownership. It's their name on it, right? The whole bit. Without above the line guidance, the below the line buyer is going to take a long time. He wants to look at all the vendors, wants to get his hands. They're going to take a long time. And it's the above the line buyer going, hey, you're looking at a calendar. I'm looking at my watch. Let's move this up. Without that ATL influence, Andy, we did work a couple of years ago with Optimizely. Mm-hmm. And I got there and I said, what's your average sale? 60 grand. ARR. Good. Mm-hmm. How long does it take? 132 days. I go, guys, you can't take 132 days to close 60 grand. They go, Skip, you don't understand A/B testing. I said, guys, you don't understand business. I go, let me explain how this works. The CMO, the VP of digital, just got her head smashed. She said, I'm going to grow my e-commerce business 100%. She grew 30 and she's in trouble. At the executive meeting, they're like, come on, what are you doing? She goes, I got it covered. We're set. We'll grow 100% this year. They go, okay, we'll trust you. One more time. She goes to our manager of e-commerce website. What the hell happened? Well, I don't know, man. Maybe we should do some testing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. All right. How much do you need? 60 grand. I'll get it for you. Let's go. So that guy, the below the line buyer, takes 132 days to look at all vendors, 60 days to run a test, 30 days to get the results. By October, he's telling the VP of digital what's going on. Well, by October, she's fired because she just missed 3/4 worth of work.
Right.
But yet we're still taking 132 days to sell this stuff. I mean, you can Optimizely, to its credit, we got less than 60. But the whole concept is, why are we letting these below the line buyers drag our sales process because they want to look at everything and the whole bit? When you go above the line is exactly what you just got onto, Andy. They're like, hey, pick one that's close. If I do 80-20, I'm pretty good. And then if I go after the 80 of the 20 and do 80-20 of the 20 I missed, that's 96. I could be 96% and half the time. Why aren't we doing this? And we're seeing a lot more of that.
Well, because the perspective that sellers are given is wrong. Yeah, they think, they're told, they're trained that by and large that, hey, your job is to help them make the optimal decision. And the fact is, buyers don't want to make the optimal decision. They want to make
the best decision.
They want to make
the right decision. No, it's not best, it's right. It's what you just said.
They want to make the good enough decision.
Exactly. Guys, 80-20, I mean 90-10 it. Let's go.
Right. So there's a Nobel Prize winner did a bunch of research about this named Herbert Simon, and he calls these decisions satisficed decisions. It's a conjunction of satisfy and suffice. They satisfy our requirements and they're sufficient to achieve our goals. And then we're done, because the marginal gain you'll get from incremental investment talking to other vendors just isn't there.
I've got 2-3 issues on my table. If I can, with a 90% risk factor, I'm 90% sure, get that initiative off my table because new ones are coming on, right? I'm fine with 90%. Now, if I'm at a 50% risk factor, I got to talk to you. But if I'm 90, 93, hey, where I grew up, that was an A. Let's launch. I'm not going for 99.
Right. So, in part of the whole reason you see these satisfied decisions is that, again, more research has been done on this, is when people make decisions, they always have 3 constraints: time, access to information, and understanding. And so they know they're not going to have a complete, full understanding, ever reach that, or never going to have perfect information about it, and they're running out of time.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you have to think about, I think, a different perspective for salespeople is, and this is, I'm like a lone voice in the wilderness on this, but I think it's just so necessary to change, is that the duration of the sales cycle is not the issue. The issue is how much time do you invest to move somebody from initial point of interest to a close, and why do you need to spread that time over 32 days?
No.
If you know it takes 5 hours of sales time, let's just say, to move the customer from point of interest to close, a lot of customers will do that in 2 weeks if you make it clear to them how you can get it done.
Buyers want to be led, but buyers want to be led through a buy process. We have one of our tools, Andy. It's called the Law of 2X. We always give our customers twice as long as they need in between sales calls. So this is Thursday. Hey, this sounds really good, John. Why don't you and I get together late next week? What's wrong with tomorrow?
Well, I call it. I have my own name for that. In my first book, I called it the indecent interval. Right? Everybody talks about a decent interval between events. I call it the indecent interval because it's like you're just operating because you think they need a week to absorb this.
Well, I don't want to be pushy. I mean, it's going to take me time, guys. Time. Wine ages well, deals don't. So, guys, if this is Thursday, even if it's an interim step, cut it in half. If you're waiting 5 days, 6 days in between touches of your customer, nothing could go well. And you're right. You could, and you say, guys, why don't we get together on Monday? Well, Monday's kind of rough. Just go, hey, you guys are saying this is important. I mean, if it's that important, can't you move some stuff around? We're only looking for 30 minutes here. Yeah, you're right. We probably should. I mean, why not really push it on the customer to close their buy cycle tighter? To your point, they want to do something faster.
Right. So, I mean, think about even in today's model. I mean, I had a client that had a software package they were selling. And on the first call, I trained the reps. And these guys were not SDR. They were more qualified than SDRs, but they were responding to inbound leads and so on. But on the first call, we trained them is that invariably, after about 10, 15 minutes, the customer would go, oh, this is really cool, to just what the CEO said in your example. I'd love to see a demo. Now, 99% of salespeople would say, okay, how are you next Tuesday, right? and the customer would say, I'd love to see a demo.
So true.
The customer would say, I'd love to see a demo. Can we schedule one? And what I did is I trained them to say, no, but we can do it right now. So the customer always said, yeah, of course I'll see it right now.
They have time. They'll make the time.
They were excited about it. Yeah, of course I want to see it now. I mean, of course, a couple didn't, but by and large, almost all of them. And so what happened is, in one call, they just compressed the sales cycle just by saying, let's do it now.
They did that at Infusionsoft. Infusionsoft sells CRM and marketing automation. Yeah. So Infusionsoft would be like 30-day sales cycles for $500 a month. It's like, guys, when they say want a demo, tell them no, unless you can do it right now. And their amount of one call closes almost doubled or tripled because they didn't have to put them on hold, set them up, I mean, what a pain in the butt. So
and that's why
I exactly right.
Laugh at this notion that we've got this conceit about the modern sales process and we have our specialized sales roles. Yeah, if we really want to make it modern, train the SDRs to give a demo on the spot.
Yep.
The customer is interested. Don't set up a meeting for the AE. Train the SDRs to do it.
Yeah, I find that hysterical, this whole flipping over the wall. I mean, some of these SDRs are really good. Many of them are. And they can take the whole sale themselves. They don't have to flip it to an AE. So we're seeing a lot more mid to low size deals staying in the SDR organization, and the AEs are complaining. But the AEs, we want our hunters to hunt, and we want them to hunt elephants and whales. Yes. We don't want them to hunt sparrows and blue jays. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about your book, new book called Outbounding. So what was the impetus to write the book now? Well, I guess we sort of covered that.
Yeah, again, just when you see a problem, you want to fix it, right? So too many AEs are getting bad or mid-size leads thrown over by the SDRs. I mean, Facebook leads and stuff and so on. So they've got to outbound, and they don't want to do it. They hate doing it. They have a bad attitude towards it. And I started writing the book, and about 20% of the way through, I threw it away because I had the bad attitude. Guys, your customers in your territory are wasting money by not being approached by you. This is not hi, you got 10 minutes to see what I got. It should be, hi, as you look at 2021 or whatever, these are the challenges out there. And if you got those challenges, I might be able to help. No idea if we can or not, but if this stuff is costing you money, time, risk, whatever, maybe we should chat. And that's the attitude you got to have rather than, oh man, yeah, I got a prospect next week. I mean, I'd rather poke myself in the eye with a pencil. I mean, it's got to be a right attitude.
Right. And it extends further than that, though, because I think that one of the fundamental issues with how we train and socialize salespeople is that their job is to go out and get an order, right? They have to get something from the customer. And as you write in the book, isn't it easier to get the customer to buy something rather than sell them something? So we're there to provide some value for them. You're there to give something to them.
Yeah. You can't make somebody buy. All you can do is help them with a buy decision. And helping them walk through that buy process is your job, not, I'm going to sell them something, then I'll take the deal down, right? Andy, I was at a car dealer years ago, and I still remember I was buying a used Toyota 4Runner for my daughter. And the sales guy comes up and goes, hi, my name's John. Hi, John Skip, my daughter Alex. He goes, I'm going to close you today. That's what he said.
I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure the manager was like, come on, guys, we got to get 30 closes today. But I mean, I don't want to be closed. So yeah, I wrote the book because I think, and then cadences and sequences, we have a client, mid-sized company that, okay, I'm an AE. I got my job to do, but I have a sequence of 25 people, 10 touches in a 2-week window. After that, I take that 25, I put a new 25. Then after that, I put 3 sets of 25. I filter them out, and that's my
600
whale.
Follow-up action items. Yeah,
but that takes them an hour a day. They get to do their other job because their target market is so well researched. They're going after above the line buyers, and just they get 3 or 4 good leads every 2 weeks, and all they're doing is 25 in a tight sequence, really tight. And they're telling me their AEs, it takes an hour a day. They've got it programmed. They've got it down. Good research. They're not just shooting for the hips. They're going for senior executives, not just tire kickers. And there isn't that much follow-up because they're doing it very deliberately, as opposed to here's 25 names, and let's go after the lowest level person who will take us because it's a hobby for him anyway. So it's not a lot of effort if people do it right, and we don't see people doing it right.
Well, why? I mean, I think this is have we socialized sellers to now think that AEs, that it's prospecting is just not part of their job? I mean, I'll tell you a story. I had been on the advisory board for a company, and I ran into a senior sales type that had been at that company, had moved on to a new opportunity, and ran into him at a trade show or a conference, and he said, "You won't believe the new company." I said, because I asked him how it was going. He said, "You won't believe it. They expect me to prospect."
Andy, I had a guy come up to me and say, listen, I don't want to prospect. I make $30,000 a month just getting out of bed with my current customers. Why should I go prospect? You're like, well, look at ever since HubSpot, ever since 2005, right? Inbound leads, SDRs, it's part of our ingrain. So now when you go outbound, the AEs are going like, well, I didn't sign up for that. I mean, I wasn't part of the job description. So you're right. I think we've desensitized the whole job of sales, and we got to start swinging that pendulum back.
Yeah. I mean, it's part, you should want to do it, right? I mean, I think that why do you be in a situation where you feel like you're completely at the mercy of something that is given to you?
Andy, I can tell you early in my career, I hated prospecting.
It was
pure fears.
We all
fear
did.
Fear of the unknown, fear of rejection, fear of the word no. Every good salesperson should never take rejection personally. I take it personally. I mean, I'm sorry. People who buy from me are great. People who don't are jerks. I mean, I'm sorry. I take it personally. And you've got to address those fears by really focusing on your customers, not just on you and how you're handling rejection. So why don't people do it? I mean, again, It's that rejection. Why would I want to put myself in a place of rejection? I'd rather lie to myself and say, I got it. It's good. I don't need a prospect.
Well, and that's sort of what happens, right?
You're exactly right.
Yeah, I see this a lot, especially in areas where there's a need to move more into larger enterprise type opportunities. And this is, for me, is where the big disconnect is. Because a lot of times companies go through the traditional sort of growth. We're going to start in the SMB, then we'll go mid-market, then we'll go to enterprise. And they think, well, yeah, we did great. Doing lead gen with our outbound and our inbound leads at the small stuff. Surely that will happen as we go to the big stuff. And they're not ready.
They try to do what they did. We call it in SaaS, land, expand. Land, expand, explode. But the problem is the people you expand with are not the people you're going to explode with. So you've got to come up with discover, descend. You've got to come up with, okay, if we're going after the enterprises, we have to go after the above the line buyers with different messaging than we did with the below the line buyers, because land, expand is a different motion than discover, descend. And once companies
explain discover, descend.
Discover, descend says, okay, I'm going to go after this $5 billion company, $3 billion, big company. And I'm going to do homework. I'm going to find out who the executives are, what their mission is, read their 10K, and I'm going to get some meetings with my executives, their executives, whoever, but we're going to get a meeting with the CMO, the CLO, the CRO, somebody, and once we get their attention and find out what their initiatives are for 2021, then we'll go together down into the VP of digital or the VP of sales enablement or the VP of product or whatever it may be. But you've got to get the attention of the senior level executives and then descend into the organization. And when you do that, deal size is bigger and sales cycle shorten because you got all that energy, rather than, okay, I got 3 seats with the manager of that, and then I got the director who gave me another 20 seats, and then I'm going to get another 100 seats from this guy. But that person doesn't know VP of product or VP of engineering. You're never going to explode that way. Land, expand works great. Land, expand, explode is a fallacy.
Okay, well, what you're saying runs counter to what a lot of people believe the SaaS model is, or a subscription-based product model is.
Let's go talk to Tableau. They figured out quickly that they'd get to a $100,000 customer, $200,000, but if they wanted to get to a couple $1 million customer, right?
Yep.
They had to go meet the C-suite and then get that people to say, these are our initiatives. And then quickly, as you just said, go down to middle management and say, guys, if this is what you're looking for, we're already sponsored by the senior management of the company. Do you want to make that 80-20 decision? Let's go. And they closed multiple $1 million deals because of discover, descend, not just land, expand, explode. You'll get somewhere on that, but it'll take you a long time to land, expand, explode for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think I'd written in the past as I'd put this little graph together with a XY axis, and the x-axis was sort of strategic importance from high to low, and the y-axis was complexity and cost, high to low, and used to say, okay, well, plot what your deal is on this graph. And depending on which quadrant you're in, if you're in the upper right-hand quadrant, which is high strategic value and high complexity, then you have to call higher in the organization. If your deal size is smaller, less costly, less complex, but you just give yourself a visual way to think about, where do I need to make my initial call?
To your point, it's not rocket science, but why do we only take on inbound leads who's the assistant manager of something and give them demos and go, what do you think, Hog? Could you please introduce me to my boss? Well, I want you going over my head. I mean, it just, and it works, but it just takes a lot of time. But we're fearful. We're fearful of calling on the C-suite because they put their pants on different than we do. I mean, they're different. Well, just learn how to speak that. I've told salespeople, listen, you close some business in 2020. Go back to 4 or 5 of the C-suite people and say, hey, how's it going? Everything good? Good. Hey, in 2021, what's going on with you? Where do you see your biggest challenges? Where do you see the biggest risks? Learn to speak their language so you don't speak below the line to the above the line folks when you get that chance to be above the line.
All right, let's dissect that for a second. So I call this acumen, right? So your recommendation for how sellers best develop this acumen?
It's an immersion program. You want to go to France? You want to learn French? Go to France for a month and just be around people who only speak French.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn how to speak at the C-suite, Go talk to some C-suite people. We had a client that interviewed in brown bags every week, a C-level person. And they'd let the salespeople listen.
Interviewed in brown bags?
Oh,
lunches.
I'm sorry.
Lunches. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Lunch and learns.
I was trying to visualize. Lunch and learns.
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
yeah. And the president had a tough time keeping that C-suite person on track because they thought they were there to say, oh, how great their product is. So he kept going after him. Where do you see your business issues? Where do you? He was teaching his sales team on these lunch and learns, the brown bags,
right.
Just, oh, I didn't know about risk. I mean, I should ask risk questions. Mm-hmm. Well, below the line, decisions are very black and white, but above the line, they're fraught with risks and they want to talk about the risks. So that sales team's acumen, their business acumen skill sets, like you said, started increasing because they just started hanging around C-suite people.
Well, and they started listening and paying attention and understanding. Yeah, that's what the good ones do, right? It's not enough just to hear a C-suite person or CEO say something, because chances are, as a young person, if they're new, maybe they don't understand it. Ask the question, right? And it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to ask that question.
We are so proud of our features and our benefits and what we do, and we're better than the competition. But learning how to actually just have a great conversation with a C-suite person, like a CMO, a CLO, we don't do that. We never teach that. We teach people, here's the features and benefits and competitive advantages and, grenades and all this type of stuff. Go forth and conquer. But you're not encouraging above the line business acumen, which salespeople need, especially as they get higher up in the organization.
Right. And one sort of exemplification of that, though, and you talk about in the book, is the need about having a value proposition for both ATL and BTL, above the line and below the line.
Yeah.
I would say it's even more finite than that. Is you basically need a value proposition for every major stakeholder that's personalized for them. And last year, mid-year, I posted on LinkedIn, tell me in 5 words or less what you sell, basically. And I think everybody should be able to reduce to 5 words the value proposition, what they sell, and what the value the buyer will get from it in 5 words or less. And the guy that won, we did a little contest, and the guy that won the contest, who's this fabulous SaaS seller working for a live person, he broke it out. He said, I've got 5 value propositions. This is to the CMO. This is to the CIO. This is to, and it's like, that's the way you approach it.
What do you want me to say? That's exactly correct. I mean, what the CMO cares about and what the EO or the head of product. I mean, try to get marketing and sales to sing together. It's hard because they're two different. One thinks they're the voice of the customer. One thinks, sales is a distribution channel. I mean, everyone, the CMO's got different initiatives than the CSO. They're similar, but they're different. And if you can't have one size fits all, or no one's going to listen to you.
Yeah, well, you have to command the attention of each of the audiences, so each of the stakeholders. So last thing, because we're running out of time a little bit, but is, I like what you wrote in the book. You had your sales law about what the best sales call in the world is. And you want to say it, or should I read it?
Andy, best sales call in the world is not where you get off the phone or get off the video call going, nailed that puppy. That was a good call. That was a good call. Because when you're doing that, the customer's going, what was that? Best sales call in the world is when you get off the phone going, I didn't say anything. I mean, I didn't even get to my slides. And the customer's going, they heard me. They know exactly what they heard me. Buyers buy from people who they like and they trust. So I think the best sales call in the world is where you feel a little empty because you didn't talk what you really wanted to talk about, but the customer feels that they were listened to, if that's what you were trying to get to.
Well, yeah. Well, I think I would go one step beyond that. Is the customer felt that you understood them.
Yeah.
And what sellers, unfortunately, don't think about enough, and if you're listening, you got to think about this, is one of the major sources of value you can provide to your buyer is to help them feel understood. And if you do that, you're way ahead of the game with that customer. That puts you in the pole position to win the deal, because if they think this guy gets it, right? This person gets it.
Andy, I did a program years ago with I was on stage with Tony Robbins, and Tony basically said, listen, the definition of a master communicator is you're responsible for what the other party understood. It's not good enough that you just said it. you're also responsible that they heard you and they understand you. And once you take on that responsibility, I think you're a better salesperson.
Absolutely. And it's not emphasized enough is that, yeah, we're going to go ask questions. Fine, ask questions, but do you really understand the answer? Do you really understand where the buyer is coming from? Do you understand that the buyer is going to answer the question with two perspectives in mind? What's good for the company and what's good for them personally?
Yeah.
If you want to make that person feel understood, you need to understand what's happening on both levels. And this feeling to them that, oh yeah, they heard me. They really understood me. High value.
I would strongly encourage your listeners to buy a book on listening, because we have so many filters out there. We filter this listening. We don't do a good job of, there's a difference between hearing and listening.
Yes.
And I love the music analogy. You hear the music, that's hearing. What's the song trying to say? That's listening. And I think we do a good job of hearing our customers. We don't do a good job of listening to them.
Yeah, I'd phrase it a little different, similarly but different, which is, hearing is automatic, right? We just hear. It happens whether we want it to or not.
Yeah.
Listening doesn't. Listening is a proactive act that we have to take, deliberate act. And yeah, your point about the filters is so right on. And oftentimes I've recommended people that are listening to the shows buy a book called Blind Spot: The Hidden Biases of Good People. Yeah, it's a fabulous book. Just talks about how we all have these invisible biases, if you will, people of various types, and it has a huge impact on how we receive communications from them and how we communicate back to them. And this book has a website you can go to and take these quizzes these researchers have put together. It's been taken millions of times. Yeah, you'll be surprised yourself when you take them.
I'll buy one today. No, that's a great recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Skip. How can people learn more about your book? When's it coming out? Or it's probably out by the time we do this.
November 3rd was my birthday, election day, and the day my book came out. So November 3rd was a big day.
Big day. Yeah.
Yeah. So it came out already. It's out on audio as well, Audible, and Amazon's the best way. And on my website, m3learning.com, stands for Miller and his three kids. On M3 Learning, I've got a set of 5 videos that I talk about parts of the book, and it's free. So they can go on my website, download, or look at the 5 videos that I've put together. They're 2-3 minute videos, but they cover some pretty good studs in the book. If they want the book or the audio, they can get on Amazon.
Perfect. Skip, as always. And I look forward to you becoming a neighbor at some point.
My son's looking for some babysitters, I'm sure. So my son's pushing us down to San Diego too. So we'll see how that works. Thank you, Andy. Always a pleasure checking in back with you.
It is. We'll do it again before too long.
All right. Take care of yourself.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. As always, I'm ever so grateful for your support of this program. And I want to thank my guest, Skip Miller, for sharing his insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you could also leave us a rating or a review and let us know how we're doing, we'd appreciate that. You can do all that on your phone in less than a minute as soon as this episode is over. So thank you for your help. And thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Ever wish you could coach like you've listened to every sales call without actually having to listen to every sales call? Conversation AI from RingDNA uses the power of artificial intelligence to help busy sales managers know exactly where to focus their coaching efforts. Learn which talking points are working and which are falling flat, ramp new reps faster, and help your entire team master the art of conversation. Unlock your team's full potential with the power of AI. Learn more at ringdna.com/CAI. That's ringdna.com/CAI.